5 simple steps to your cold calls. Stop sounding salesy. You say the same exact things every other salesperson says when they're making cold calls to prospects. You open your cold call with the question, "How are you today?" when you and I both know you do not care how the prospect is doing. You then go into this long pitch that is laced with industry large buzzwords that you don't even understand. By doing things differently, using pattern interrupts, using a permission-based opener to open your cold calls, using language a 5th grader could understand. Those things, guys, go a long way and lead to better conversations. Cold call blocks. Cold calling is a rhythm game. It's like shooting hoops. If you're not making your cold calls in time blocks, you're making one call here, and then after that call, you're logging that activity into Salesforce, you're checking your email, you're checking Slack, you're making sure your fantasy football lineup is set prior to making that next call, you're screwing yourself. You need to make your calls in blocks. This is the only way to successfully make cold calls because it's gonna allow you to get into a rhythm and a groove when you're making your calls. We're gonna block off, for example, an hour on your calendar. And in that hour, the only thing you're doing is making cold calls. You're not checking your email. You're not checking your Slack. All you're doing is picking this thing up in my hand right here and making calls. If you don't have a dialer and you're gonna manually type out numbers, in an hour, you can make between 30 to 40 calls, depending on your conversations. Stat tracking. Where am I losing on the phone? Is it the opening, the pitch, the close? Where am I losing the prospect? Without keeping track of my stats as a salesperson, as a cold caller, I will not know where I need to improve to optimize my cold calls that lead to better conversations that convert into meetings. What you're looking at on the screen right here are the 7 stats you need to keep track of as a salesperson to optimize your cold calls. You can gain access to this inside of my cold call guide in the description of this video. A/B testing. This piggybacks off stat tracking. You need to be frequently A/B testing your cold calls. For example, if I was just starting out, and you want to do this especially when you're just starting out making cold calls, if you're a new SDR, or maybe you're not a new SDR, but you're brand new to a company. What you want to do is you want to try a cold call opener for 500 cold calls. Keep stats on how successful that opener was to getting you in to your pitch. After that, what you want to do is try a different cold call opener for the next 500 cold calls. Keep stats on that. Which cold call opener resulted in more conversations on your cold calls? A or B? B, okay, I'm going to use B for the next 6 months. 6 months later, guess what? It's time for me to change things up and try a different cold call opener to stay fresh, keep things fun. It can be monotonous when you're making cold calls, especially 100, maybe 50 every single day, and that's your primary job when you're an SDR, and it's also your job when you're an account executive as well. You want to be A/B testing every phase of your cold call framework, from the opener to the pitch to the close. Keep stats on those to consistently iterate to come up with the framework that's going to result in the best conversations, meetings, and more money for you. Practicing. If you aren't role playing every single morning before you pick the phone up to make your first cold call, you are doing yourself a disservice and the prospect a disservice. Too many salespeople, and I've done this in the past, too many salespeople will practice on their prospects because they didn't warm up. Cold call conversations, guys, you know this better than I do, are few and far between. They're hard to come by. Most people are not picking up the phone. You're talking a voicemail most of your day if you're an SDR. That's why it's so important when you get somebody on the phone, you need to be ready to go. You need to be ready to handle any objection that might come up. And guess what? You're ready to go because you handled all of those objections 10 times that morning. You went through, "Matt, I'm not interested," 10 times that morning with your manager or another SDR. Cold calling in sales, it's like sports. I don't think Jalen Hurts goes out onto the field a couple nights ago against the Chiefs and takes down the Chiefs by walking onto the field in the first quarter without having warmed up, without having watched film, without having thrown some balls before the game. Athletes warm up and practice. You as a salesperson, a cold caller, need to warm up and practice. What do you think, guys? I think these are 5 simple steps to unscrew yourself on your cold calls. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, and check out this video right here. It's a complete cold call guide of some of the top tips on the internet to take your cold calls to the next level. Thanks for watching, guys. We appreciate you.